This week, it's all about being a human dreaming of the stars. Hi, friends. It's Emily with Emily T. Astrology, and I am your host for Hermes Speaks. This is your weekly astro check-in where we explore the current quality of time and bring in some added mercurial insight through the written word and bibliomancy. This week, January 14th through the 20th, we have a ton of planets in Capricorn that will all be forming sextiles to both Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, trines to Uranus in Taurus. Then they will move across the sign boundary into Aquarius, where they will conjoin Pluto. That's way too many transits to try to break down individually. So let's just think of this as one story arc that is developing over this week. We have Venus, the Sun, the Moon, and Mercury forming these aspects to Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. The Moon, Mercury, Venus, and the Sun are the four fastest moving planets or wanderers in our sky, and they are each having conversations with the four slowest moving planets in our pantheon of the major planets: Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Our faster moving, sometimes called personal planets, are in conversation with the slow moving transpersonal or outer planets that are generational. I get the feeling this week that there is something about the micro meeting the macro, something about the personal interacting with the collective. And somewhere in the middle there, we need to process it all in our bodies and in our human lived experiences. Mercury and Venus, and Mars for that matter, are traveling so closely to the sun that they are not visible in our night's sky. They are up when the sun is up. So there is a quality of the behind the scenes, the hidden. We can't quite see externally out there all that is moving and all that is taking place behind the scenes, behind closed doors. There's a privateness, but that does not mean that there is not a lot happening and a lot that we are processing this week. So let's take a minute to discuss the particulars. And as I said, it's a lot. So get ready here as I list off these transits. On Wednesday, January 14th, we have Venus in Capricorn, sextile to Saturn. On Thursday, the 15th, Venus in Capricorn will trine Uranus in Taurus. On Saturday, the 17th, Venus in Capricorn sextiles Neptune in Pisces. The Sun in Capricorn sextiles Saturn in Pisces. Venus will move into Aquarius, the Sun will trine Uranus in Taurus, and Mercury will conjunct Mars in Capricorn. On Sunday, the Moon is moving through Capricorn and forming those sextiles to both Saturn and Neptune, as well as a trine to Uranus in Taurus before she moves into Aquarius. Then the Moon conjoins Venus in Aquarius. Then Mercury in Capricorn will sextile Saturn in Pisces. The Moon in Aquarius will conjoin Pluto, and Mercury in Capricorn will trine Uranus in Taurus. Whew, that's just all on Sunday. On Monday, the 19th, the Sun in Capricorn sextiles Neptune in Pisces and then moves into Aquarius. Venus in Aquarius conjoins Pluto. Saturn in Pisces sextiles Uranus. Mars in Capricorn trines Uranus and sextiles Saturn in Pisces. And then on Tuesday, Mercury in Capricorn will sextile Neptune and move into Aquarius. That's a lot of transits, one after the other. A Capricorn planet coming to a sextile with Saturn in Pisces, then a trine to Uranus in Taurus, then a sextile to Neptune in Pisces, moving across the sign boundary into Aquarius, and conjoining Pluto, and sometimes each other in the mix. I want to write a story with this arc of these planets moving in and through these conversations with each other, our fastest moving planets having conversations with our slower moving outer planets, first forming the sextile to Saturn in Pisces. The sextile is a cooperative aspect. It is one of the soft aspects, 60 degrees apart. It speaks of cooperation and of support. I am feeling, as Saturn is nearing its end to its stay in the sign of Pisces, this feels like we are coming to the mature realization that perhaps a structure in our lives or a dream that we had is reaching its expiration point. We are becoming aware that it is time to let go of an old dream, an old structure, an old idea. It's reached its expiration point. It's time to be releasing some old fantasy, some old structure in our lives, right? And that's aided when the sextiles to Neptune come through as well. That's the piece about the dream. We're coming to the mature realization that it's time to let go of something. And then there's the trines to Uranus and Taurus. This is another supportive aspect. There's a free flow of energy when we're talking about a trine, the 120-degree aspect. This feels like a jolt of inspiration, a breakthrough idea, a sense of liberation or freedom, potentially like something sudden or unexpected that throws us off balance a little bit, something that feels destabilizing, but in a way that's exciting. This is the trine that we're talking about, that maybe some new idea is coming in about what the next chapter is, now that we're maturely recognizing it's time to let something old go. Maybe this is the jolt of freeing energy that comes through that allows you to make that awareness that, oh yeah, this is being cut out of my life, right? Mars is involved in this story arc too, and Mars, one of its primary significations is cutting. So maybe the trines to Uranus, to these faster moving personal planets, there is a jolt, an unexpected breakthrough. There's something electric or freeing or destabilizing or disruptive that comes through that allows us to make that realization and accept it, or that inspires us with a new idea about what the next step is. And then these planets all cross the sign boundary into Aquarius. They gain a bird's eye view perspective. They gain expanse in their ability to see things, a little bit more objectivity, a little bit of a detachment from the emotions that they might be feeling around the release and letting go of something old. They gain a perspective that allows for an ability to see with a more objective and detached eye. And then they dive into Pluto in their conjunctions, their consecutive conjunctions to Pluto. Pluto is a planet of power, of depth, of transformation. I've heard astrologer Austin Coppock often say that Pluto makes big things small or small things big. This feels like we're releasing something, we're letting it go, we're coming to that mature acceptance of it, we're getting a jolt of a new idea, a new inspiration, or something that destabilizes us, that allows us to let go and free ourselves of whatever the old construct is. Then we're moving into a collective, objective, expansive, bird's eye perspective on the thing, and then we move in to this powerful Pluto conjunction. We are being seeded with the birth of something, perhaps something that once felt monumental. Maybe that thing we're letting go, we're recognizing that it actually is small. It's becoming smaller. It's becoming minute in its importance. Or conversely, we move into something that's just a little seed of something new that feels like, okay, this might be something small. This might be some subtle shift or change or transformation I'm about to embark upon that we have no idea how large and how big it is going to become and how important and consequential it is going to become in our lives, particularly given that Mercury Venus and Mars are invisible. This is behind the scenes. This is underneath the depth. This is at the root and in the magma of ourselves, right? This is down in the core. This embrace of the faster moving planets with Pluto, the depth, the power, the transformation, the making something monumental, minute, the making something small, huge, right? And this also speaks to the faster moving planets talking to these slower moving planets. There is the sense of the personal interacting with the collective or the mundane. There is a sense of the emotional and the heart center interacting with intellect and big picture. There's a dialogue happening here. And it's, again, happening behind the scenes, kind of privately, but powerfully. And I think that this week, this process of these planets going through these sextiles to Saturn and Neptune, the trines to Uranus, moving into Aquarius, and then conjoining Pluto, we have a lot that's happening across the Aquarius-Leo axis this year, because we have just next month in February, the eclipse season starting in Aquarius. We have, come July, we have Jupiter moving into Leo, and then we have in August an eclipse in Leo. This axis itself speaks to the heart center in Leo, sign of the sun, right? The heart, the warmth of our individual selves, and Aquarius, the collective, the hive mind. So this moment here, this week in January, this feels like we're setting ourselves up. Maybe if you are the journaling kind, come July, August, maybe look back, journal this week. What was started that maybe seemed like it was small, or what was coming up for you that by the summertime is being blown up or being made very visible in your life? I get the sense that this little behind the scenes story that's taking place this week, between the personal meeting the collective or the mundane, between the micro conversing with the macro, this feels like a quietly consequential moment in the year. So I kept getting the image when I was thinking about this week. I kept thinking about what it must be like to be a human in a human body with our cells and our tissues and our muscles in outer space. That this was the image that kept coming to me. A human body shooting off into outer space. And when that image came to me as I was preparing for this talk, the first book that jumped into my mind was Orbital by Samantha Harvey. And so we have reached the point in the show where we bring in those mercurial messages through the written word and the divinatory practice of bibliomancy. Orbital is a fictional novel about a 24-hour period in orbit of the cosmonauts and astronauts on the International Space Station. So the book is a novel about what it is like having a human experience in space. So you can see why this was the first book that came to my mind. So I pondered this week of all this energy between Capricorn and Aquarius, the fastest moving planets and the slowest moving outer planets. And I opened the book and read this. Just a few weeks here leaves you paler and thinner. If humans were to stay long enough in space, would they eventually take on the form of something amphibious? Pietro wonders. He's been here now almost 6 months and has 3 months more. He thinks he's becoming a tadpole, all head and no body. With the atrophying of the body, life doesn't tug at him so much. He feels hungry, so he eats, and the sinuses are so blocked that the food has no taste, but anyway, there's no real appetite, not really. He sleeps, because he must, but his sleep is mostly tentative, not deep or robust as it is on Earth. Everything in his body seems to lack commitment to the cause of its animal life, as if there's a cooling of systems, an efficient running down of superfluous parts. In the slowing and cooling, he hears his thoughts more. There are distant bells chiming one at a time in his life. In orbit, his sense of life is simpler and gentler and more forgiving. Not that his thoughts are different, but that his thoughts are fewer and more distinct. They don't avalanche like they used to. They come and they interest him for as long as they need to, and then they go. What do you think about this passage? In space, as a human with an animal body, Pietro, the character who is the narrator at this point in the book, is feeling like there's a quieting of his animal nature, of his biological systems. They are becoming smaller or less noticeable. The primal needs of the body are lessening in their expression, lessening in their strength, right? Even his thoughts are becoming fewer, but when they come, they're more distinct. There is less attachment to them, less attachment to the outcomes of his bodily desires and needs and his thoughts. There's something in this around a distillation of what actually is it to be human? What makes us human? Is it our animal instincts, our animal needs to eat, to sleep, to procreate? He's wrestling with this idea of what is it that makes me human? I'm an observer. This feels so Aquarian, right? I'm an observer of my experience here as a human in a body with needs. And I think what I'm really getting from this passage today is that, 2026, all the astrologers have been saying it. It's a huge year. It's a monumental year for the astrology with all sorts of outer planet movement and interaction, especially come July. There's, all year, really. The spring is big too. And there's something about if we are undergoing this potentially massive transformation that wants to take place in our lives, this consequential rebirth or shift. There's AI, there's military action that potentially is happening this year. There's like these big macro shifts that are happening, that are on the horizon. Big, mundane, macro, collective shifts in our society, in our culture, in the ways that we operate. And I think what I'm really getting here is a little bit of a warning that lest we lose our connection to gravity, right? Out in the International Space Station, they don't walk around, they float, right? Lest we float off into space, into all of these changes that are happening. I think the message that I'm getting from this reading is like, let's not forget our humanity, right? Let's remember we are human. We have animal bodies with primary needs. I think my unsolicited advice, as my dad would always say, it's free advice, so it's worth every penny you're paying for it. But my free unsolicited advice is, get out there and touch grass if you can this week, if you don't live somewhere where there's 2 feet of snow outside. Remember your humanity. What makes you human? I keep thinking, sing a song. Sing and feel your diaphragm moving or your belly. Or listen, if you don't like to sing. Listen to music and observe and feel how a song can alter your mood. Get out there, take a walk, do some squats, feel the heat in your muscles. Right? This week feels like a week to remember our humanity, to remember these are our personal planets. Venus, what we love, what we desire, what we find attractive, our preferences. The sun, our vital force, our energy, our ambition. Mercury, how we think and process information and communicate. And the moon, how we feel and process in our bodies, our experiences, right? These are our personal planets that speak to very personal aspects of our psychology and our lives, coming into contact with these outer planets that are much more diffuse, if that's the right word. I don't know if it is, but lest we float off into space and start wondering if we are actually just amphibious, right? let's remember our humanity. Let's be humans. Let's do all of these things that remind us, right? Oh my gosh, if you happen to have a baby in your life, smell your baby's head, right? There's nothing like the smell of a newborn's head. Something like that. Hug a tree. Hug a tree, put your hand in the dirt. Connect with the earth, with the soil, with your heart center. And then, after you've done all of that, freaking create your vision board for the year, right? Dream big. Dream as big as outer space, right? Envision as big as the cosmos and the stars, but with, at the root, your humanity, your sense of heart-centeredness. What makes you human in your cells, in your being, yeah? So this week, be a human, but dream of the stars. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this content, please do give me a like, subscribe. Book a reading with me if you have been wanting to touch base one-on-one with an astrologer. I'm your gal. Come see me. You can go to emilytatomer.com to book your reading with me, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Thanks so much, all. I'll see you next week.